On behalf of Knight's journalism team, Karen Runlett, Lashara Bunting, and Paul Chung, just want to give our heartfelt thanks to Sue, Cross, and to Fran for the entire INN team for bringing us all together here. And we really want to thank all of the people on the call because you have been doing the really incredibly important hard work during times of tremendous uncertainty when it comes to revenue, when it comes to our own health. And here we are at this moment in time, this incredibly important moment, time to really, really come together and discuss and figure out what is journalism's role in upholding systemic racism and what can journalism do about it. Earlier this week, Lashara Bunting put together a conversation with Martin Reynolds, Sara Lomax-Reese, who I'm absolutely delighted to introduce in just a minute, and Mitra, to talk about what can we do as journalists and as news leaders and as journalism organizations to finally address systemic racism and not uphold it. And one very simple way that my colleague Lashara Bunting urged us to think about, it's a very simple question. What I'm doing upholding systemic racism, or what I'm doing, or is this decision I'm making dismantling it? So that's just something that I think is really important for us to think about today. And something else that Martin Reynolds reminded us in his remarks is that diversity is tied to sustainability. And let's stop talking about the underrepresented audience. The audience is our future. So, but we have a lot of work to do not to share trust, but to build trust, because trust has not existed. Journalism organizations, many have not earned that trust from Black communities, from people of color across this country. And so I am absolutely thrilled to introduce Sara Lomax-Reese. Sara Lomax-Reese is an amazing, just an absolute amazing woman. Sara is the president and CEO of WURD Radio in Philadelphia, which is Pennsylvania's only Black talk radio station and one of the few in the country. And we've had an opportunity to work with Sara on a number of projects, including a very exciting project that I hope that she will discuss today. Sara's thought leadership and her contribution to this conversation will really help us identify the solutions, because what has to happen during this time is we have an opportunity, everyone on this call, to really create a new media landscape that serves all communities. So please join me in welcoming Sara Lomax-Reese.
Hi, and welcome. I'm Sarah Shariari. I'm the Director of Leadership and Talent Development at INN, and we are so fortunate today to be here in conversation with Sara Lomax-Reese. It's a real privilege. So I'll start with a few questions for Sara, and then we're going to open the floor to you, the audience. You can go ahead and write your questions in that chat space, and Sara will get to as many of them as she can in the time that we have. Hi, Sara.
Hi, Sarah.
So good to have you here. Sara, following the killing of George Floyd and the protests and the journalistic coverage his death sparked, there's really this surge in conversation about media coverage of communities of color and diversifying newsrooms, many of which are still very much primarily white spaces. You point out that change is crucial, not just in diversifying these spaces, it's also key that media organizations are founded, owned, and operated by Black people and other people of color. Can you tell me about your experience with WURD and the importance of it as a Black-owned business in Philadelphia today?
Sure. First of all, let me thank INN for inviting me to be a part of this conference. I want to thank Sue Cross and my dear friend Fran Scarlett for this opportunity, and Jennifer for the lovely introduction. I appreciate all of that acknowledgement. So, first of all, I would say that the notion that the protests were they clearly were sparked by the murder of George Floyd, but this is so much wider and broader and deeper for the Black community than George Floyd. It goes back to Emmett Till. It goes back to the lynching, crisis that happened following Reconstruction. It goes back to slavery and the fact that enslaved Africans were chattel slavery, chattel, they were property, they were treated as animals. So this is the George Floyd tipping point is really just the explosive example or illustration of this energy that's been building for a very, very long time. And so to your specific question, WURD is a Black-owned, family-owned talk radio station. My family owns WURD. We purchased it in 2002. And my father was a doctor who had medical centers throughout Philadelphia and basically cared for Black communities, Black and brown communities in communities of color for about 32 years. And so he was able to achieve a real measure of success over his lifetime as an entrepreneur and a physician through developing a healthcare company that eventually became extremely successful and was purchased by a major company. And it was a significant wealth creation event for him and our family. And so when that happened, he was approached by many, 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 many people because, as you can imagine, the racial wealth gap is vast and deep in America. One statistic that I looked at from just to prepare for today is that, just to illustrate the racial wealth gap, the median net worth of Black families is just about $11,000 compared to $134,000 for white median households. So, this wealth gap is huge. And so my father, as this philanthropic, this Black person who had access to resources, he was approached by a lot of people all the time to help them make payroll, to help them make their rent, to help them make their mortgage. But he was really the backstop for a lot of people in Philadelphia's Black community when he was successful. And he was incredibly generous and incredibly philanthropic. And so when WURD was came on the market, Philly has this long tradition of Black talk radio that was established before WURD. A longtime radio icon named Cody Anderson came to my father and said, Doc, there's this opportunity, and people are always going to be coming to you for money. You can't give everyone money, but you can give them a voice. And this is why you should consider buying WURD. And that really resonated with my father. And he even though he did not have media experience, he understood the power of media and understood that the Black community needed in a city like Philadelphia that is 44% Black. It's a major media market, and it was about to not have any media outlet that was specifically for and by the Black community. And so that really spoke to him. He acquired it. It struggled mightily for years and years and years. I actively did not participate in the management of WURD for many years by my own choosing. I knew it was going to be difficult. And I had been a media entrepreneur before that. I had co-founded a Black Health magazine that I ran for 10 years with much struggle. And so I actively sat on the sidelines, but saw that the station was struggling I knew that it was bleeding money. My father was writing checks to cover, the gap every month, big checks for years and years. And so finally, I felt this urge. I was the only one in my family. I'm one of 6 children. I was the only one in my family who had background in media. And I understood advertising and distribution and audience engagement and development, unlike anyone else in my family. And I started to feel like I was, it was kind of like family malpractice, that I was actively watching this very public, entity that we owned and were associated with, just kind of struggle and really not do well. And so I stepped in 2010 as president. I had put together a strategic plan and what have you. And it was at this point where my family was really ready to pull the plug. It was really at a moment where it was like, we cannot keep subsidizing this business because it's just losing too much money. And I stepped in to just say, well, can we just try a few things? Can you give me a chance to try a few things to see if we can rectify or right size this organization? And it was a real slog. So that was 2010. I've been running WURD for 10 years since I took over, and over that time, we've done a number of things. We introduced a membership program in 2010. And the reason we introduced a membership program, it wasn't really about generating revenue. It was really about trying to figure out if people really cared about this radio station. We were not audited by, Nielsen or any of the ratings agencies. And so there was a real fundamental question as to whether or not anyone in Philly really valued this radio station, because it was, again, costing us tons of money. And so we said, we're going to do this membership drive and allow people to demonstrate whether or not they really cared. And it was unbelievable, the outpouring of love and support for the station through this membership program that at the time we called 990. We were trying to get 900 people to show, to pay $90 over a 90-day period. Our dial position is 900 AM, so it was all playing on this 900, and so people were enthusiastically in support of the station when we put it out there to the community, and that was a turning point for us. And I was able to, because my father continued to support the station, I was able to implement some things, focusing very deeply on events. My father transitioned in 2013, which created another kind of crisis, because we were really kind of on our own at that point. He was able to kind of fill some gaps while he was alive, but when he made transition, it was like, okay, you have to, and I don't like using violent metaphors, but you had to eat what you killed. You had to really, figure out how to survive, because we did not have a funding source that we could draw on at that time. And so we did all kinds of things. We were able to expand our platform from just AM. We applied for an FM translator in 2017. So now we're broadcast on AM and FM. We doubled down on our membership program. We expanded. We do lots of events. Well, pre-COVID, we did tons of events because it was easier to get event sponsorship than advertising revenue. But anyway, we did a bunch of things. We had an incredible staff that was super committed, but it has been an absolute struggle. And I would have to say that we are actually an anomaly. We are, the Lenfest Institute did a report for us, and we are the only Black-owned talk radio station in Pennsylvania, and we're only one of 3 in the nation. And what that says to me is that there's a reason for that. This is a very hard business model to make work. when you are doing original programming from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, and the economics are very challenging. So many sleepless nights about how to survive. But we have been able to persevere because we had the support of an owner that was dedicated, just really understood the power of this platform. And so we've been able to innovate over the years to expand into certain areas that we never thought we would be able to do. We have an environmental justice initiative called WURD. We just launched a new project that I think Jennifer was referring to that we call Livelihood, which is about connecting Black Philadelphians to jobs, career resources, and entrepreneurship opportunities as a way to try and address this high poverty rate and this high unemployment rate in Philadelphia. So, we are pivoting, being nimble as a result of COVID-19, doing much more stuff digitally. We have an app, we have obviously a website. We have all kinds of things that we're doing to try and be relevant in this moment and super serving our audience, which is at the heart of what we're doing and what we're about and why we're here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We have questions just pouring in for you. So if it's okay with you, I want to just start going through some of those.
Yeah, because I could ramble for quite a while on this.
Well, it's an amazing family story, and all the things that you've accomplished are extraordinary. We have a question from Joellen. It's Black-led news is historically for profit. Could you talk about why Black-led news might want to remain for profit, recognizing that this is a conference for nonprofits?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other kind of anomaly of my being here and having the opportunity to speak. So I really believe that that the for-profit model is an opportunity to address this the wealth inequities that have existed throughout history in America. I believe that, and I believe deeply that for-profit businesses in the Black community are absolutely critical to help to expand and to democratize access to wealth creation opportunities. We are an organization that once we become like really profitable, we're at about a break even, maybe a little bit of profit. We want to be able to empower our employees with profit sharing, with possible, opportunities for equity and things like that. And that's something that to me has a ripple effect, and it allows for not just me and my family to benefit, but for the employees and the people who support and are helping to grow WURD to benefit financially. And I think that that's something that is very, very important. Economic empowerment in a capitalistic society is fundamental. And so when we're talking about how do we make substantive systemic changes at this time, when so much is being, with such a bright spotlight is being placed on the centuries of oppression that have locked Black people out of opportunities, I think you cannot have that conversation without talking about financial resources and access to capital to help, equalize and repair the centuries of disinvestment that have happened in Black communities and Black businesses. I was doing some research for this, and the corporate community spends about $1 billion in advertising in Philadelphia, just in Philadelphia. And we get less than like 1/5 of 1% of advertising revenue in a city that's 44% Black. And so, when you look at how upside down that is, and we're the only Black-owned radio station of its kind in this market, to me, that is like egregious. That is like so unfair. And I've been living that for my whole professional career. It is completely upside down, and the line is always moving. They say, well, you have to be an FM. Okay, well, now we're AM and FM. Well, now you have to be this. Now, the line is always moving for Black businesses. And so there has to be a wholesale investment on all the fronts, on the philanthropic front, on the corporate front, on the individual front, to try and right size and to ameliorate this system that has really seen Black media and Black businesses and Black people, it's all connected, as less than, as not a good investment. So yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you. We've got a question from Lyle, who's asking if part of the problem, including among INN members, is lack of ethnic diversity. What would you think about a formal connection to journalists at Black-owned outlets that would help other outlets increase diversity of thought in their stories? Or is that approach sort of an escape hatch to keep other media from diversifying itself?
Well, I mean, I think that everything needs to be on the table. We do a lot of partnerships. We do a lot of partnerships with, we're part of this collaborative called Resolve Philadelphia in Philly. That's a consortium of about 24, 25 media outlets around the city that are all covering a particular topic around poverty. We partner with all kinds of entities to try and broaden our reach and to give them an opportunity to connect more deeply with our audience. The problem with these partnerships is too often we are unevenly yoked, and there is this presumption that it's not a two-way street, and so too often we are the recipients of their content, the recipients of their reporters, and we feature them on our airwaves, but our reporters and our content doesn't quite make it onto their platforms. So I think that if you go down the route of partnerships, it has to be a real concerted effort to be balanced and to make sure it's mutually beneficial and mutually advantageous. And so I think that partnerships are not a bad thing, but that's not a replacement for actually recruiting and promoting and creating pipelines and really diversifying general market newsrooms, but also to look at the value proposition of supporting media that's owned and operated by people of color. The thing is that Black media, and my expertise is on Black media, and so I'll talk about that. It really is an endangered species. If there is not a wholesale investment in reviving and supporting and providing resources to Black media, and I'm not talking about Black-oriented media, I'm talking about Black-owned media, it will go away. It is going away. Like there are 168 Black-owned commercial radio stations out of over 10,000 right now. In 1995, there were 250. So we're going backwards. We're absolutely going backwards. And if there aren't things done from a policy level, at the FCC level, at the national, state, and local level, if there's not stuff done from a corporate level, from a philanthropic level, these entities will go out of business. And the last thing I'll say on this is that I know that whether it's nonprofit or for-profit media, newspapers, radio, everybody is struggling. We know that the advertising markets are collapsing, all of those things. So, it's not unique. The challenges that we have in terms of digital transformation, in terms of, diversifying our revenue streams, in terms of, recruiting and retaining great talent, those are not unique to WURD or Black media. I understand that. However, when local white media we have a saying in the Black community, when the white community has a cold, the Black community has pneumonia. And so that is what is happening in the media landscape. Whatever's happening in mainstream or white-led news organizations that are contracting and struggling, it is on steroids in terms of Black media. And so there has to be a commensurate response, I would say.
Thank you so much, Sara. I'm sorry that we don't have 3 more hours to talk. We're all about to get zoomed into our next phase of the meeting, but thank you, Sara Lomax-Reese, President and CEO of WURD in Philadelphia. Thank you for sharing your incredible family and business story with us.
Thank you. Wow, I'm surprised it went so fast, but thank you so much for the opportunity.
We appreciate it. Thank you a million.